Hi, I'm John Stapleton with CodeVA, and this is a quick tutorial on creating output with the Material Computer. Now, the Material Computer is a set of manipulatives and objects that I'm using to help you think through tracing programs that use pseudocode rather than letting a computer execute programs to test them out. So this is our Material Computer. Each grid is a space in the computer's memory. And then over here on the right is my code that the computer will follow, and we'll kind of like work through the program as we go. Now this is about outputting information. So in kind of the pseudocode of the Praxis exam and with the Material Computer, we have a command to tell the Material Computer to output information. So if I type the command print and I put a value there, the computer, or the computer we're imagining, is going to produce a value of 5 as output. Now, the way I like to imagine the computer doing this is the computer sort of sending information out of a door or a space. So over here in the bottom right corner of the Material Computer grid is this output square. So when I'm reading this code, what I'm going to have the computer do is take a value of 5, and I'll just represent that with these 5 tokens. I'm going to place 5 here. Then what I'm going to do is write down the value in this square. Now there's a reason I'm breaking this up into multiple steps. You'll see in a second. I have a little clipboard here. I'm going to use this clipboard to record the output of the Material Computer. So we have a value of 5 there, so I'll write down 5. There we go, beautiful. I have executed a line of code using the Material Computer. Yay! Now, you've already potentially seen variables before. So a lot of times what we'll have the Material Computer do is actually output the value of a variable rather than just outputting a number. So to do that, I need to first tell the computer to create a variable in its memory. So I'll have the computer create a variable and give it the label data. And the variable called data is going to have a value of 4. Then I'll have the Material Computer print the value of the variable called data. Pretty good. Let me grab I'll execute this first line of code here. So to do that, I need to create a variable in the computer's memory. I'll give it a label of data, and then I'm going to take 4 tokens and store it in the variable called data. There we go. Close that up. All right, first line of code complete. Next, I need to output the value of the variable called data. So I'm going to grab my variable, put it on output, and then, because I need to figure out what to actually write down on my clipboard, right? Got my clipboard over here. I'll peek inside the variable called data. Now, because I just did this, I know what the value is. It's 4. But it's good to, imagine the computer's not too smart, so it may forget what's in that container. So I'll write down a value of 4. Beautiful. Okay, so that's outputting variable data. Now, the thing to remember is because the computer is going to execute these lines of code in order from top to bottom, I can actually add some more lines of code. What if I reassigned the variable data and gave it a new value and then printed that value? What does this code look like now? So I'm going to clear off everything or start from scratch. I'm not going to erase my clipboard because it's just too much work, but you can imagine that we're starting from a blank clipboard. Okay, blank computer, starting from line 1, here we go. First, create a variable called data, okay? Variable called data, and assign it a value of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, beautiful. Okay, so there's my variable called data. That's line 1. Next line, I need to output the value in the variable called data. So I'll move the variable to the output square. I'll have a little peek inside. Still 4. So now I'll grab my clipboard and output a value of 4. Beautiful. So that's line 2. Next line, I need to modify the value in the variable called data. So to do that, I'm going to discard the tokens there because I'm deleting it. It's going away forever. I wish I would be more emphatic, but I don't want to make a mess. And then I'm going to take 5 tokens and reassign that value. There you go. That's line 3. And then finally, the last line of code, output print the value of the data variable. So computer peeks inside. Yep, that's 5 still. Perfect. And I output a value of 5. So that's tracing code. We're going line by line, trying to figure out what the computer is going to do at each stage. Now, there's one other thing that you may encounter in some pseudocode and in other programs. If I were to print a value like so, you might want, or let's do 2 values. You might want to print those values like here. I'm just going to cross these out. You might want to print those values one after another, like 5 and then 10, or you might want to print them like 5 and then 10, like that, side by side. The thing that is the difference between those 2 commands is called a line feed, and there are a couple different ways to represent that. Sometimes programming languages will have a different command called println, which means print this value on a separate line. And sometimes, like in the pseudocode, for example, they might have a little comment in the code saying line feed after, like this. Oops, sorry, that didn't make sense. Line feed after, or, no line feed, something like that. And that's what they mean by line feed is is it going to be on its own line, or if it's going to be on the same line as the other print statements in the code. That's a little confusing. That's more important if you're writing code for a computer to output itself. And obviously, as you can tell, this process is much slower when you're doing it by hand, thinking about each line one at a time, than it would be with a computer. But this is how you trace through code. You're going to think about what the computer does at each stage. So that's an explanation of outputting data using the Material Computer. Good luck and happy coding.